Hey, I have a second channel. Cube Comp MTDX.
Hey everybody, here we have this FSP power supply model FSP 300-60 THA parentheses 1. So I actually have two of these units. One of them does not run at all except for the 5V standby. This one here runs, but it makes this awful screeching noise, and when there's no load on it, it sounds kind of like a cicada. So let's have a look inside this thing. Now, I do want to mention power supplies. You do want to be careful inside of them because they can hold a voltage in the primary with time. Generally they discharge pretty quickly though. So that being said, let's go ahead and take the cover off and have a look inside. Okay, so here we are inside this unit. There's your look from the top down. And like a lot of FSP units out there, this unit is a Heinz 57 mixture of capacitors. We got TPO, we got OST, looks like TPO and OST in this one. The other unit that I have has TPO, OST, and Jamicon. So multiple different brands of caps in this unit. It's like they had this, almost like they had this random drawer full of capacitors and just pick and chose as necessary. The crazy thing is, looking inside this unit, don't see any visibly failed capacitors. Now sometimes capacitors can fail and not actually bulge on top. But with the noise that it's making, in my opinion, just makes it suspicious that perhaps either the caps could be failed, or there could be some bad caps in there that are just not visibly failing, or I'm actually also wondering if maybe there was a bad solder joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the PCB out of the case. That way we can have a look at the bottom side of it. But before I start really messing around here too much, I do want to check this for voltage. Now, some of these units, it can be easy to probe and check, but others can be a pain in the butt. It all depends on the design of it, really. I do think we're good on this one, though. I think we're good. So the bridge rectifier on this one's kind of set down low next to the PCB. The primary caps are not bulged on top. They look just fine. Both of them look fine. And the thing is, to mention, there was no burning smell or anything like that when this thing was running yesterday. In the previous video I did of it. I don't think I've ever taken the circuit board out of the case. So FSPs, a lot of FSPs, they have a screw where basically bonding the secondary heatsink to the chassis. Take that out, and now we'll go ahead and just make sure the cables are loose. Got to snip a couple of zip ties here and there because we got one right here. I also got one right here. Okay, so one thing I do want to look at is I want to see if there's any noticeable like bad solder joints. So it's not exactly very often that I've actually uncased a FSP unit. Yeah, FSP power supplies are generally regarded as decent units. Yeah, we're good voltage wise. Yeah, we're fine. So now it's just a matter of just taking a look at this thing and see if I notice anything like outright, which simply may not happen. Alright, I need to get some additional slack here. Gotta pop this additional zip tie because it's holding some of the fan leads in it. See, FSP units, or at least a good majority of the ones I've worked with, they have a standalone fan speed controller mounted up on the secondary heatsink. I like that because let's say I ever want to part out one of these old units, you can save that fan speed controller for retrofitting into another power supply that doesn't have fan speed control, or you can use it to control the speed of a case fan. And it is a thermal fan control, by the way, too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look this thing over. See if there's anything like that just like sticks out. So I don't see any like burn marks or nothing like that. I do want to check like the solder joints. Look, let's say of the transformer, which that one does look fine. Also the main switchers, which are right up in here, and nothing seems loose there. See, I'm going to suspect it could possibly be bad capacitors, because I'm just looking at this thing and I don't see any noticeably bad solder joints. Nothing, no cracks in the joints, anything like that. I mean, it could just be capacitors. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to give this thing a recap. The only thing is I will not be able to replace that big OST because that is a 3300 microfarad 16 volt and I don't have any of those. Matter of fact, actually I just dropped one into the cheap power supply I retrofitted that's in the Trash AM2 system, an old Sunpro unit. But the rest of the caps I should be able to change out, like the TPOs. Like, I consider TPO an inferior brand to OST. OST, at least some power supplies, they seem alright. So yeah, I think that's going to probably be my plan of action, is change out the TPO capacitors on the output section and see what happens. Definitely wouldn't hurt to try it. I mean, if you watch a previous video featuring this power supply, you would definitely hear that the noise it was making. It sounded like a cicada with no load on it. And when I had this thing briefly installed in that Dell Optiplex 390 system, it just had a high-pitched squeal, which it just, in my opinion, leads me to possible capacitors. And I kind of wonder if maybe capacitors could be the issue with the one that's not turning on. So I'm going to actually change out those capacitors. I'm going to change out the TPO caps because, like I mentioned, I don't have any 3300 microfarad 16 volt caps for the 12 volt rail. So I'm going to say that this... Does this thing say it has two 12-volt rails? Yeah, it does. It says it has a an 8 amp 12V1 and a 14 amp 12V2. Let's see if that's really accurate. I do see a black pinstripe on the what I'm guessing it's a 12V1, and it appears they do in fact go in different spots on the PCB, so I'm going to take it FSP isn't exactly lying about the dual 12-volt rails in this unit. It seems like on some of these holes maybe they could have used a little more solder, but I don't see any cracked joints. So I'm going to change out the capacitors. Okay, everybody, so I went and drew up a really basic just map of the caps in this unit, noting their polarities, their microfarad capacity, and their rated voltage. So the fun thing about this unit is not a whole lot there. The 3300 microfarad 16 volt cap stays because I do not have a proper replacement for it. I mean, I probably could drop in a 2200 microfarad cap in that spot and it would probably work okay, but dropping the capacitance is not something I would generally recommend in this kind of scenario, especially to that big of a degree, because this is filtering the 12 volt rail. And it seemed that FSP in their design, they pretty much went with fewer but larger capacitors. So we have, as far as the bigger caps on the output side, we got what, 7 capacitors? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're changing out 6 of those 7. So go and heat up the soldering iron and we'll go ahead and pull these out. Okay, so I just changed out those 6 capacitors. And I'll say that although this unit didn't have all that many caps in it, it still was kind of a pain to deal with because, especially right here, this one capacitor here, its ground was on this big bus right here. So the solder didn't want to easily melt, and I could not get a clear path, so I had to just guide the capacitor in using a soldering iron. Although I do think FSP power supplies are of decent quality, I'm going to say they're not the neatest looking units I've ever seen. Heck, I think Hypro and even Bestech units are neater than this on the underside. This is just crazy. Had to be super careful to not have any loose bits of solder or material on the pliers here so we don't short something out when we back porch test this thing, which we will be back porch testing it. I have not changed out the primary caps because I'm curious to see if just replacing those secondary caps would make any difference on this. Kind of have my doubts, but we shall see. Alright, so let's go and reinstall this back into the case. Okay, so I'm actually, at this time, I'm not going to really bother with zip tying all the wires back. I can pop the cover back off at a later time and put those zip ties in. The key thing, I just want to put it back together and see if it works. And see if it still makes the horrible noise. Okay, so we got the power supply on the back porch and it's plugged in, getting ready to send power to it. Hope for the best. It turns on. I'm gonna give it a moment just in case any caps are inserted backwards, which I was pretty dang sure I got them all right, but also, yeah, just in case anything goes wrong, I like to just wait a moment. Alright, let's see if it's making noise. Well, if you have a listen, She's as quiet as she can be. No ugly sounds. Doesn't sound like a cicada anymore, guys. So it was just the capacitors. So even though they weren't actually visibly bulging, that does not mean they ain't bad. So apparently that OST in there was fine. It was those TPOs. So yeah, a recap fixed it. Sounds good as new with those Japanese Rubicon capacitors in there. Now I can actually put this thing back into service. So I'm not going to actually volt test it here on the porch, but yeah, guys, I'm pretty thrilled. Sometimes when I do these recaps, it's like, am I wasting my time, or is my time and effort actually going to fix the problem? And lo and behold, that fixed it. That being said, we'll go ahead and shut it back off, and I guess tomorrow we'll give it some time to safely discharge. Yeah, I knew the primary caps were good. That thing kept running for like 2 or 3 seconds. Let it sit for about a day or so, and I'll pop the cover back off and install those zip ties, and we could put this thing back into service. And it's a 20 plus 4-pin unit. It's got plenty of SATA connectors, so yeah, could actually use this in a budget build if I wanted to. So anyways, very exciting news. The recap fixed it. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Well, everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to your channel, and be sure to tick that bell so you'll get notified when new videos are posted. Also, don't forget, I have a whole lot of other interesting videos here on the channel to check out. And also, in addition, I have a second channel, Comp MTDX, where I have all sorts of other videos not exactly related to technology. Links to the channels are available at the end of this video. Again, I thank you for your support, and thanks for watching this video.